One in four kids who menstruate in Michigan miss school because they don't have the products they need at home. And there's a lot of people who give products in schools, which is great. But these kids need these products at home as well. Helping Women Period gives product out, but we also try and educate and we also try and advocate.
Welcome to the One Girl Revolution podcast. It's your girl Kate here. This is the place to find inspiring stories of world-changing women and girls every single week. We have a new unique story coming your way every single week, so make sure that you subscribe to the One Girl Revolution podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and everywhere you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at onegirlrevolution.com. That's the number onegirlrevolution.com. to find all of our over 190 episodes of the podcast. It's absolutely incredible what One Girl Revolution has become, and we have so many incredible stories to come. Please listen to all of the episodes of the podcast and share them. Watch our Emmy-nominated documentary series on our website and on YouTube. Donate to our nonprofit organization to help us continue our critical work to elevate women's voices and their stories. Go to onegirlrevolution.com. That's the number onegirlrevolution.com today. This week on the One Girl Revolution podcast, I welcome Lysne Tait, co-founder of Helping Women Period. Helping Women Period is a nationally recognized leader in the fight to end period poverty across our nation. Now, this is a topic that is rarely talked about in our world, let alone menstruation at all, but period poverty is a real and critical issue facing so many people in our world. Lysne and a friend of hers recognized the tremendous need and wanted to do something, never imagining that they would end up turning their initiative into a nonprofit organization that has distributed millions of period items and served thousands upon thousands of people in need, because the need is so great. In this episode, you will hear all about Lysne's incredible life story, how she found out about period poverty, and how Helping Women Period started, and the amazing impact that they are making every day to help women and girls, period. Here's my conversation with Lysne. Lysne, welcome to the One Girl Revolution podcast.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. I can't wait.
I am so excited to have you on, and we're going to talk about a really important topic, one that I don't feel like is often talked about, and that is period poverty. You're the co-founder of an incredible organization serving low-income people and people experiencing homelessness by collecting and distributing period products. It's so simple, but so critical, and I'm so excited to have you on to talk about that and the great work that you're doing and how the organization started. But before we get into that, I would love to rewind and hear a little bit about your own story, your own life, who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about your life before Helping Women Period.
Okay, well, I was born in a commune in Colorado, and I was really lucky my name wasn't Rainbow or something like that. Lysne is strange enough, but anyway, my parents moved back to Michigan, and I've grown up mostly in Michigan. I got an education degree at Eastern Michigan University. I was a secondary education and English language and lit. So I taught high school for about 6 years. I helped start a charter school in Jackson. And that was at the very beginning of charter schools in 1995, I think. So that was a really fun experience. And it shaped the way I do things, I think, a lot, because I had to learn how to think on my feet. And we had a different philosophy. We wanted everyone to be reasonable, respectful, and responsible. And those were all our rules. So it really shaped who I am. So then I had kids and decided I couldn't teach and take care of my own children. So I became a stay-at-home mom for a little bit. And then I was bored. So I volunteered for everything. And that's actually how we got into Helping Women Period, because my co-founder her kids also went to the same school.
Oh, that's amazing. And I think it's so important that you bring that up, because especially as women, we don't have to die to have many lives, as the saying goes. And so sometimes life changes, you have kids, and I love these stories where it's like, hey, I decided to stay home. I was still volunteering. I was getting involved in so many different things. And then all of a sudden this spark moment happens where you're like, oh, I see a need. I want to do something. This is what we want to do together. So Helping Women Period started in 2015. How did that idea spark? How did you two come up with this idea?
Well, it's so funny because I always call it an accidental nonprofit. We were going to do a one and done kind of event, and that was going to be it. My friend Amy and I saw the same article on Facebook in January 2015 about the lack of period products for homeless women. And we were just gobsmacked. We thought, how come we'd never thought about this before? Like, we had given soup, we'd given cereal to the food pantries. We never thought about pads and tampons. And I think we both just assumed that some federal program took care of that, like SNAP or WIC, Women, Infants, and Children. You think they would take care of pads and tampons and diapers and formula. And the only one they take care of is formula. So anyway, we saw that and we were like, we have to do something. So we were like, oh, we'll invite 30 of our closest friends, have a breakfast, ask them for donations. We'll buy a couple cases off of Amazon and we'll donate it to the local shelter, and that'll be it. So we had no idea what we were getting into. We put it on Facebook on a Sunday, just created an event. And on Tuesday of that same week, we had to change our venue because we had 100 people that wanted to come instead of the just 30 that we were planning on. And then on Thursday of that same week, we filed nonprofit paperwork because there were people from all over the world who wanted to give us money, and we wanted to be as transparent as possible. So that's kind of how we started. We had our breakfast, we raised about $4,000. And then we thought, we don't want to give it all to Jeff Bezos. We want to keep it in our community because our goal is to help our community. So how else can we help our community? We buy it from the people in our community. So we found a janitorial supply company and talked to him, and he had a daughter, and he said, I can't imagine her without what she needs when she needs it. So I'll give it to you at cost as long as you buy 100 cases. We were like, well, we were just planning on 2. So we bought the 100 cases. It was about $4,000, which was great. And we put these cases in our cars and in our living rooms. And, I had 3 kids and 2 of them are boys, and they were teenagers, and they learned a lot about pads and tampons that first year because they had to separate things and move things out of the way when they got in the car. And so then we were like, how do we get rid of all this stuff? Because we don't know enough people. Like, we're not involved in that world at all. And we didn't want to be just another set of white women hands going, here, let me help you, here, let me help you. Because we thought if we were in that situation, it's already embarrassing enough to not be able to take care of yourself on many different levels. And you just don't want more people to try and help. And so we started working with other groups that already had relationships with our target market, food banks, domestic violence shelters, homeless shelters, schools. And so we call those charity partners. And so we give them product in bulk, and then they distribute it to to the people who need it. And so that's how we got started.
Yeah.
It's been quite a ride, and it just keeps getting bigger. Like, the need is there, and it doesn't ever go away. I would love to be out of a job. I would love to not have this be an issue. And I think it's solvable. I really think it's solvable
I
with
agree.
government issues and, schools. And I think we could do it, but.
And even with companies, right? Like, I know that more and more companies are becoming aware of it and donating products. I'm sure you've had some of that as well. But the need is so great. And I think it's really starts with talking about it, which is why I wanted to have you on this podcast to make people aware, because awareness is key. A lot of times we don't think about things that are happening in our own community. And that's what I love so much about your organization. You could have been like, all right, let's open up the floodgates. Let's do everything across the country and ship products out and do all that. No, we need to focus on our own local community. And that was one thing. Period poverty was one thing that I thought about a lot during COVID, because here you have things were shut down. I know that there were points where there was a shortage of products as well, like going to the grocery store, it was hard to get those products. And you see that that's happening every single day. And so we need to talk about it. And also it's so simple that all of us can do something, right? We can all donate some products and, either work through an organization like yours. And I know that there are others out there, but people that are in the state of Michigan to support you or wherever you are, people can do it, but we need to be talking about it. And it is such a personal issue, like you mentioned too. I think it can be so stressful and so difficult for a woman or even little girls. I've read different stories about little girls going to school and they start their period and nobody told them about it, or nobody really talked to them about it. And we're living a little bit in a different culture than I feel like even my mom had shared stories about when she started her period, it was like this shame thing, like, oh, go to the bathroom, don't talk about it. But there still kind of is that little thing, right? And it's the reality of our lives every single month. We deal with that and really trying to serve the community and serve our own communities, whether it's working with schools and having those products available. I think more people, especially me living in the city of Detroit, more schools are becoming aware that is a problem, that these girls that are in their schools can't afford the products or their families can't afford the products, so making them available. But I just love the work that you're doing. And I think it's so important to raise awareness. And so that's why I want to have you on this podcast. It's incredible what you're doing.
Well, thank you. Yeah, 1 in 4 kids who menstruate in Michigan miss school because they don't have the products they need at home. And there's a lot of people who are like, oh, give products in schools, which is great. Like but these kids need these products at home as well. Helping Women Period gives product out, but we also try and educate and we also try and advocate. Because one way to solve some of that missing school issue is to get those kids who are free and reduced lunch, can't afford the products they need, to get them those products, they can take them home, and hopefully not miss school as much because they'll have what they need. So we just got that on the budget. It's in the school aid budget this year. We have a pilot project going that will do that for 7 school districts across Michigan and give those kids who qualify 20 pads or 20 tampons for each month they're in school. And I'm really excited to see how that works. I mean, I figured it out and it would cost $5 million to do the whole state, but they wanted to do a pilot project first, which I guess is responsible, but.
But really, like when you think about all the budgets, I mean, $5 million to us is a lot of money. I think about the Mega Millions and it's like, what would I do with $5 million? But for the school system, you're covering so many different schools, helping so many children, so many kids. You're covering a lot of ground, and that's really not that much money when you think about it. So
Right.
I hope that the pilot program goes amazing, and then they continue to fund this program, and it just gets bigger and better. And I can't wait to follow and stay in touch with you. And of course, like anything we can do here at One Girl Revolution to support the work that you're doing. But I would love for you to talk a little bit about the people that you're serving, because I know you mentioned school children and, I know adults of so many different ages. Tell me about the people that you serve, and maybe talk a little bit about some of the community partners as well, how you get connected with people.
So one story, since we're talking about kids anyway, I had the mom of a 9-year-old call me, and 3 girls in this 9-year-old's classroom started their period. And nobody was ready for it. Like the teacher wasn't ready for it. The kids weren't ready for it. The parents weren't ready for it. And the school didn't have anything, because in elementary school, there's no trash cans, in each bathroom. There's no way to be private about what you're taking care of. And so anyway, the mom called because she wanted to make sure that we could get product in the schools. One of her daughter's friends, their parents were immigrants, and they didn't realize that you need more than 1 pad each day when you're on your period. And so this other, this friend was giving her friend pads so that they could, and I just thought that's one thing that we need to increase, is the education, right? Like teaching everyone, boys and girls together, earlier what a period is, and that it's not funny and it's not, it's not a curse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that reminds me of, I saw on Facebook or Instagram the other day just this little story, and you probably have seen it, especially since you're working in this area. But they was talking about this little boy. This little girl was on the bus, and she went to go stand up or sit down or something, and the boy saw that she had started her period, and he was, I think they were like 12 years old, 11 or 12, like young kids. And the boy went over and just said, "Hey, here's my sweater. Just wrap it around your waist, and like you can just give it back to me at school or whatever. But I just wanted to make sure that you had something to like cover it up until you got home." And that story just really hit home for me, because we've all been in those instances, not to be TMI, but
Yeah.
so many people have been through those instances where you're not expecting it, or you leak and like it's embarrassing, and you're like, even like at work or school or wherever. And so I can't imagine for these kids who are already going through so many difficult things, and bullying is at, I feel like, at an all-time high in school systems. And then with social media, and
Right.
TikTok, things just catch fire. And just like the sincerity of this boy and how he was aware. And so you bring up a great point, that it's so important for us, no matter if you have girls or boys or whomever, like that you train your kids and train individual people to not be afraid to say something too. Because we've all
Mhm.
had instances where you see somebody with like something in their teeth and you just don't say anything. And it's like, oh, they'll figure it out at some point. No, like we should say something. We need to actually like help each other out, because we've all been in those instances. So that little story just reminded me of this boy, and how
Mhm.
sweet it was that he like went up to her really quietly and like gave her his hoodie or whatever, and just said,
Yeah.
"Oh, give it back to me some other time. Like we need to look out for one another, but train our kids to just normalize it, right?
Right.
Normalize the
Right.
discussion
That's
around it."
well, and that's why we're talking, right? To make it
Yeah.
normal. Yeah, and like period. So we're talking about period poverty too. So periods are stigmatized enough. Like you just said, people feel that shame for years and years. I talk to women who are 70 and 80, and they still blush when they tell me the story of when they were in seventh grade. And so that's the stigma of period. But then there's the stigma of poverty. And our society doesn't like dirty people, and our society doesn't like poor people. I mean, like you see the person on the side of the road with the little cardboard sign, and so many people say, oh, well, is that is a scam, or it's some kind of ruse, or they should just get a job. Well, they can't get a job if they don't have a place to take a shower, if they don't have clean clothes, if they don't have period products, right? There's all these barriers in their way of, it's not as easy as just getting a job. And
Yeah.
so those are two things that we really, at Helping Women Period, we really talk about a lot, is those two stigmas, to try and just, poverty isn't catching, periods aren't catching. I mean, it's it's
Yeah. There's so
just
many facets, but also the work that you're
mhm,
doing can just change. It sounds so simple, and but it's something that can really have a massive impact on someone's life, on their ability to
yeah,
go to school, on their ability to go to work, on all these things like you mentioned. And now I'm thinking, I'm like, oh, I need to start keeping period products in my car. And like when I see someone, even just like, having a little pack in my car
mhm,
that has like, hand sanitizer and some period products. And then, I mean, maybe even some snacks. I don't know, like different things like that. And we can all do little things like that. And it sounds like such a simple thing. And like you said, like with regards to periods, sometimes it can be something that there's shame around. And so it can be awkward, like, hey, I wanted to give you these period products, but like it's so important for us to be thinking about that. And it affects so many different ages, age
right,
demographics. I know that you're serving children all the way up to, women that aren't perioding anymore,
right.
if you want to say it that way, women who have moved beyond that. And so you're able to affect so many people. Watch In Tandem on One Girl Revolution's website or on our YouTube page. In Tandem is the inspiring story of Caitlin Cullen and her restaurant in Milwaukee, The Tandem. The Tandem does more than just serve food. The Tandem is a family, a community of support for everyone. The Tandem hires people that often no one else will hire, gives them an opportunity, trains them, and helps them find their way in this world. The tandem is a support system for everyone who walks through their doors. But when COVID hit in March 2020, the tandem story became even more inspiring. The tandem closed their doors to customers and began solely feeding people in need during a time when so many people were struggling. Caitlin and the tandem community fed over 115,000 people during the first year of the pandemic. Absolutely incredible. Watch and share in tandem today on our website at onegirlrevolution.com. How do you get connected to the individuals or the organizations that you serve?
Well, I've never had to go look for organizations. It's a lot of word of mouth, I think. I just got 3 emails this morning. Somebody was talking about us at some school thing, and they're like, "Oh, can you help us with our school?" So it's really a lot of word of mouth. We've started, so just this year, well, in 2022, we started expanding throughout Michigan. We were just based in the middle, and we've started moving into Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo and Detroit and Flint and Saginaw. And really just getting there and talking to people. Like in Grand Rapids, we took over for another group that was doing the similar thing. So we had some people in there, but I go to networking groups and tell people, this is what we do, and this is who I am, and here's some cards if you want to know. Send me people, because that's what we want to do. We want to take care of that barrier. That it's just like on that whole Maslow's hierarchy of needs, food and shelter. It's right there with food and shelter. It's a necessity, and we just can't. People can't go forward. It's that whole. There's a saying about a rising tide lifts all boats, and that's really I sincerely believe in that. I think if we help everyone just a little bit, it's going to just make our whole community better.
And there's also something we talk a lot about this on this podcast, is when we can uplift one woman, if we can create a space for one woman, the ripple effect that it has. So even the work that you're doing, helping one person, it can also have a ripple effect, and then it leads to helping other people, helping her children and, her children's children. It sounds crazy to think about it, but it really does have multi-generational effects, the work that you're doing. What has the public response been since 2015? You've been doing this work, having a lot of conversations with people. Do you feel like most of the time when you're at these networking events or you're talking about it, most people get it? Or do you ever have people that are like, what? Like, why are you doing that? What's the public response?
It's interesting. Mostly it's very supportive and very like, oh, I didn't know, and I didn't realize this is a problem. And then the next thing they say is, how can I help? I mean, it's if you have a period that starts when you're not, at home and you don't have the products you need, you can ask anyone and they'll give you a tampon if they have it. I mean, it's such an easy thing for all of us to do, no matter where you are, no matter what country you're in, if you need something, somebody will give it to you. And I think since it affects everybody in the society, but mostly 51%, it's just a really recognizable issue to help with. I think I've had a couple people who are like, I don't know if people didn't understand, but they were they're like, well, I took care of myself. I didn't need anybody to give me stuff. I mean, that's a typical response if we get a negative response, but we don't get very many of those at all. And the other thing is we work at a couple mobile food banks every month. And so people are getting their food, and then we hand out pads or tampons at the end. And this just strengthens my idea that we need more education, because there'll be a guy driving the car and I'll hand out pads or tampons and he won't want to touch them. And I'm like, dude, they're not used. There's nothing that's going to hurt you. It's in a package. But that's another one. Or there'll be some single guys and they're like, no, I don't need that at all.
Yeah, but normalizing it, I think that's so important. And even like, guys going to grocery stores, I know that I've had that experience with I said my brother or my dad or whatever, and they do it. They've done it, but there's even like oh, like you want me to get, okay, like you want me to get that. It's like, there's nothing wrong. It's a clean. It's like buying toilet paper. That's not weird to you. It's
Right.
clean. Nothing's been in there. But yeah, I think normalizing it, having these conversations and normalizing it across the board, like it shouldn't just be women sounding the alarm. It should be every single person. Every single person has a sister, a mom, a friend, a girl that's a friend,
Right.
like we all know people. And so even like, this is a shout out to guys, not to be weird, but like, keep some products in your car. You never know when like one of your girlfriends or gal pals is going to need something, or your sister. I think it's really good for us to look out for one another. So, Lysne, I want to talk about your incredible impact, because on your website you talk about, it said you've distributed over 1.6 million items, which is incredible to me. And I'm sure since that video has been made, there are so many more.
Oh, yeah.
How do you collect the products? I know that people can donate money, they can donate products to you. How do you collect the products? And talk to me about that impact that you've had.
So, like I said, it keeps getting bigger and bigger. So that video was a couple years ago. And so in 2021, we distributed 740,000 items that year. In 2022, we distributed 1.4 million items that year. And so far this year, since January, we've distributed 1.3 million products already this year. So we're on track to do 2 million this year. It's huge, right? That's a huge number. And really, if you want to like about a million products is about 47,000 periods. So that gives you like a bit of narrows it down a little bit.
Yeah, that's
Um,
incredible.
okay, I was an English teacher. I was adding things and I'm like, I did it wrong. I know I did it wrong. The number is too big, but no, that's the way it is. So we are probably 70% individual donor funded. That means like individuals send us money and then we purchase product in bulk from our janitorial supply company. We're about 10% grant funded. So we have a couple grants that we get to do the same thing. And then we're 20% in-kind donations. So that means people have pads and tampons that they, like are in their closet that they haven't used, they didn't like or whatever, and they give those to us, or they buy products. Or we have a couple larger companies who have donated products to us. Procter & Gamble, Honey Pot donated a semi-truckload. It's just crazy. And You Buy Kotex, we've worked with Walmart. All those places have donated product to us so that we can distribute it. And it's amazing because I never thought I'd be in the position to like do supply chain management and try and like look at how we used product last year and how we need to get more this year, and worrying but I've never worried about where it's coming from because it always just shows up what we need,
Yeah.
it's but for us, because we do the bulk thing, we can provide for one person's need for an entire year for $40, which is huge. I mean, those are pads or just tampons, but I mean that'll
Yeah.
for an entire year that'll cover them. So anyway, that's
That's incredible. The
we
impact that you've made is so incredible. And I know sometimes, and even with One Girl Revolution, it's just like you have this idea, you start it 2015, not really knowing where it's going to go, not really intending to start another nonprofit, but then it just catches fire and catches steam. And then the more awareness that you have, whether it be by people that are in need of these products, but also people that want to support the products, it just continues to grow and like kind of organically catches fire. And I know that that's what has happened for you, and then will continue to happen. So I can't wait to see where you go from here. I know that you shared a story about the little girl in the class, and I'd love to ask you about, is there another story or two maybe of someone who has been helped through your work? It also could be one of those partner organizations, but someone or something, an organization that really shows the impact, like a story that really has touched your heart where you're like, yes, this is why we do what we do every single day.
well, I have one I don't know. Uh, so when we give these products, we have people who sew bags for us. So they sew homemade bags. They're about like 9 by 11, and they have a drawstring or a zipper. So that's one way people can volunteer to help us, is sewing those bags, and then we stuff them. And so we've been doing that for many years. And I went to a college class to talk to them about how they could help and what we do and all this other stuff. And I talked about the bags, and it's a nice thing. And people are like, oh, well, did they give the bags back? I'm like, no, we don't ask for them. That's a gift. And a lot of people are very, like, they're like, somebody remembered me, right? Somebody was thinking about me when they sewed this bag and stuffed the bag with tampons or whatever. And so I said, yeah, I don't really, I've heard a couple of stories about that. And then as I was leaving the class, one of the girls came up and she was helping me move stuff out. And she goes, I just wanted to tell you, she goes, I still have my bag. I was one of those kids, and I'm now in college, and I'm doing she was going for psychology or something like that. But it was just so sweet to know that, yeah, we really are doing something. It's not just, handing stuff out and spreadsheets, which are the bane of my existence. But, things like that are just so nice to hear.
Yeah. And I love the idea of the bags too, because somebody has put time and care into you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just like, all right, here's a Ziploc bag full of like some tampons. It really makes it special and kind of feeds their soul. And I got chills when you told that story, because you just don't even know the impact of these children or even adults that are getting these bags, just how it can change someone's life. And that's what I love so much about this podcast, is I love sharing these stories, because we all can do that. We all can I believe that we're all a revolution, no matter who you are. It's not just about women and girls, although we focus on that on this podcast, but we all can make an impact. And so whatever your gift or talent is, maybe you are a sewer and you're like, hey, I have some extra fabric. I could reach out to Helping Women Period. I'm like, can I sew some bags for you or whatever? We all can do something to make a difference.
Yeah. It's so true.
So where do you go from here? I know that you've done so much in a short period of time. Let's see, we're in 2023. So in 8 years, you've accomplished so much, and you just continue to grow and evolve every single year. In your dream of dream worlds, Lysne, where do you hope that Helping Women Period goes from here, and what impact do you hope that you can make?
Well, so this is going to kind of answer your question, but not exactly. So we look at the numbers. We've given so many pads and tampons, but that's just dealing with the symptom. It's not dealing with the actual cause. And we've mentioned it a couple times, but we really this year are trying to focus on educating. We've been to a couple expos, like women's expos, where you go through and there's all things to buy and stuff like that. And we have this table that we take to different events called the Menstrual Product Petting Zoo. And it's got pads and tampons, but it also has menstrual cups and menstrual discs and period underwear. And so we can talk this way. We're able to talk to a larger group of people and explain what a menstrual cup is and how to use it. And if we have menstrual cups and period underwear, we'll give those away at those events, because it's really important to reduce our landfill, right? What we put in the landfill, and to be more environmentally responsible. And like my mom never used a menstrual cup. And so it's scary. And you look at it and you're like, I don't know how that's going to fit. I don't know. It's going to be gross, all these other things. But it's also, you only have to empty it every 12 hours. So it gives you a lot more freedom when you have your period. Same with period underwear. And so trying to educate people about alternatives. And at the same time, we talk about, 1 in 4 girls miss school because they don't have what they need. And, there's 40,000 people, or 400,000 people in Michigan alone who live under the federal poverty line. Are women and girls who live under the federal poverty line. And so, that's another thing, that's how many people can't afford the products that they need. And so if we can educate people about period products and educate people about the need for more period products. Um, and that's also a way to fight the stigma. So that's one thing that we've really focused on in the last year. And then the other thing is the advocacy. And like I mentioned, the Helping Women Period pilot project, we're not involved in that at all. We're just the ones who instigated it and said, this is what needs to happen, and this is how you can solve this problem. And the legislators are the ones who said, okay, we can do it this way. But that's it. And talking to legislators about this, they're like, well, we don't have any, our constituents don't come to us and say we need period products. I'm like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I don't think many people are going to their congressmen or women and saying, let me talk to you about my period and all my
Right.
problems. So yeah, but this is also a good conversation to have, that like that could be something that's important, right? It is something that's
Right.
important. We mostly stay away from politics on this podcast, but it's important for people to be aware of projects like this, that it's like, hey, I could go and advocate. If you live in the state of Michigan, you could go and say, hey, I really appreciate this pilot program. I hope that it continues, and show your support. Tweet about it, right? Social media is such a powerful force. And I always say on this podcast that the free and easy way to support anything that's going on, support the organizations, individuals that we have on this podcast, is to follow them on social media and retweet their stuff or tweet about it. So read up about it. And if you're in the state of Michigan, post about it. And if you're not in the state of Michigan, figure out what's going on in your state with regards to this, and what can you do to advocate, to jump on board. And you're such a beautiful example of that, Lysne, that we can all do something.
Well, and if you are in another state, there's a wonderful group called the Alliance for Period Supplies, and it's just allianceforperiodsupplies.org. And they're part of the National Diaper Bank, but they have groups all over the states and are really good about pointing people to the different directions. So if you want to help, that's a really great place to go.
Donate to One Girl Revolution's nonprofit organization to help us continue our work, highlighting inspiring women and girls that are changing the world through their lives, promoting their work and their organizations, and building a powerful and positive force out in the world dedicated to empowering women, their voices, and their stories. Donate at onegirlrevolution.com/donate. That's the number onegirlrevolution.com/donate.
How can people get involved in the work that you're doing? What can they do to support you? Obviously, I mentioned social media. People can follow what you're doing. They can follow some of these other groups. I'll be sure to post your links to social media and also your website in the show notes. But what can people do to support your work, and what can they do to get involved?
So our website is a great way to get involved. We have a tab that's called Get Involved, and it's got where you can volunteer, sign up to volunteer, where you can sign up to donate products or run a product drive on your own. You don't even need to be in Michigan, but you can follow our product drive toolkit and find a place to donate in your state. I mean, schools love it. Like, I drive in to schools and I take my little cart of pads and tampons, and I've had cheers from the secretaries and the counselors because they're just so excited that they've got stuff to help their kids. So I mean, that's one great way. The other thing, like we talked about, we have different volunteer kind of options. So we have like the ones that you can come and volunteer with us. You can sew bags. It doesn't matter where you are in the country, you can sew bags. And as long as they have a connector on the top, that's fine. We also take Ipsy bags or other makeup bags because we can fit about 15 tampons in there. And that's really good for schools because they can, it doesn't look like they're taking a package of tampons. We always take money, right? Like, money is the way things work. And we can get a lot of product for just a little bit. So we can make that money go a long way. So $40 for one person for a year is amazing. But I even have people who donate $10 a month, and that's still so helpful in getting product that we need to the people that need it. And the other thing is to just talk about periods. I'm so excited about high schoolers because we've had so many who are not embarrassed at all. Like, they don't care. They'll talk about their periods. They'll talk about, handing people pads and tampons, or they'll talk to legislators and principals about how they need product. And it's so much like, it's so different from even my own experience. Like I never thought I would, like, really, I never thought I would be talking about pads and tampons and periods. But yeah, that's the best, like volunteering or money or, donating product is very helpful too. So, but talking about it is the most important.
Yeah, I think that's such an important thing. And I do love young people. Like you said, high schoolers, I've seen different TikToks where they're talking about periods, and it's like just a new era, in a way, where we went from, and I even thinking about it, like with my mom, she came from the era where nobody talked about it. It was really private. Go to the bathroom. Don't talk about it. Don't bring it up. Here's a paper bag. Like, don't look at anything. Don't talk about it. And then my generation, it was like, especially my mom going through that, she really celebrated it. My sisters and I joke about it because my mom actually had a period party. We joke about it where she like invited all her women. It was like a little tea, and they could write messages in this little book. And it sounds kitschy, and we joke about it, but it was so special. It like made it a special thing. Like, here you are coming into your womanhood. This is a turning point in your life, and that's very. It stems a lot, I think, from the Native American community. And that's really where my mom got this idea it should be a celebration, you're becoming a woman, and like, this is so beautiful. And now, in this next generation, it's just, there are so many discussions that are happening that I couldn't even fathom as a young person starting my period, having those conversations. And I'm grateful to social media and to people like you who are really encouraging these discussions. And I'm grateful to have you on to talk about it. And so I just want to encourage everybody who's listening to donate to you in whatever capacity, whether it's, giving money, giving product, giving bags, providing that. Follow you on social media, share about it, share all of your social media posts. That helps break the stigma and like opens up conversations about it and spreads awareness, which is so important. And I will post all the links in our show notes so people can easily get connected with you. Lysne, I have a kind of personal question for you about the work that you're doing. Not that we haven't talked about a lot of personal things in this podcast, but what's the driving force for you? Like, if you had to get to the very root of why you care about this issue, why you do what you do, and maybe it's just the work that you're doing every single day and the people you're interacting with, but what would you say the root of that is, the driving force that gets you doing this work every single day?
So I love connecting with people. That's like my jam. And so I love being able to see people every day. That's the biggest part, really. The other thing is, it just needs to be done, and I know how to do it. So I'm going to just keep doing it until I don't need to, right? Like, yeah, I think that's most of it.
Well, you've tapped into something, and I know you're going to really inspire so many people through this podcast. And I can't wait to continue to celebrate your work and share your work and follow everything that you're doing. And like I said, anything that One Girl Revolution can do to continue to promote your work and spread awareness, we are going to do it. But before I let you go, I have two last questions. You are a One Girl Revolution in my mind, and I know in everyone else's mind who's listening to this, and so many people that are around you know that you're a One Girl Revolution, a woman who's really changing the world every single day. But who is a One Girl Revolution in your life? Who is a woman or girl that inspires you?
So there's a woman named Christy Hemmer, and she wrote a book called Quit Being So Good. And she's a motivational speaker and goes around and talks about how to take up space in the world. And she talks about moxie. Like, what's your moxie moment? What have you done today that has just made your day, like, or that you're proud of? Because I am a Midwestern woman, and I have a really hard time promoting myself because, we just we just do what needs to be done, and we keep going. And looking back at what we did is really kind of hard. But yeah, I'd say Christy is a One Girl Revolution. She's just such a great person. I just really like her.
I can't wait to follow her, and I will be sure to put her in the show notes so people can check her out.
Yeah,
but Lysne, before I let you go, I always end this podcast on one question because we're focused on women and girls. I'd like to ask you, if you could leave women and girls around the world with one message, what would it be?
You told me you were going to ask this, and it was really hard.
It's a hard question, but it's a good one.
It is. My one thing that I think about all the time, which I don't know, it's going to I don't know.
Say it.
To keep in mind, like, I think it's important to keep in mind that your job is never going to love you back. It's, we're so good at being people pleasers, and that's been the role of women for so long, is to like just not, like my grandmother used to say, anything for peace. And I think that's important, is to know that you can take up space, to know that just because, sorry. To know that the quality, who you are, is not dependent on what you do. I mean, like, what you do for a living. It's dependent upon how you treat other people. And it's dependent upon, like, there's so many other things that make up you that you can't just depend on your work. Calling yourself a teacher, people have this idea of what a teacher is, right? But if you say, I teach, you don't fall into that picture quite so. And so then they don't have these prejudices against who you are and what you do. I think that's probably even more important, is just saying what you do rather than labeling yourself. That might be.
That's such a beautiful, no, that's so important. And that's a big part of why One Girl Revolution exists, is because even me, like I shared with you before we started recording, I was working in PR. And so often I saw women being crammed into these boxes by the media and by other people. We all do it, right? Like we see somebody on Instagram, we don't even know them, and we make assumptions about who they are as a person because of their beliefs, because of what they do. Like you said, like, oh, that's a teacher, I know who that is. Like, I know who they are. And you actually don't. I don't know that person. And even people in our own families and our own friends sometimes don't really know who we are, and it's like, we need to kind of pull back the curtain and look at other people and say, you know what, I'm not going to make assumptions about who I think they are, but actually get to know them as a person. And that's why this podcast exists. I could read about you online, but I wanted to sit with you and get to know you. And you're doing that every single day, walking with so many people and the work that you're doing, and not judging them for what they look like or who you think that they are. You're just like, hey, we all have needs. This is an important project, an important need. Everybody needs it. It's critical. And so we're just going to serve you and work with you and walk with you. It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Lysne, for all that you do, for all the incredible work that you do. And thank you so much for being on the One Girl Revolution podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at One Girl Revo. That's the number One Girl REVO. And you can find more information on One Girl Revolution at onegirlrevolution.com. That's the number onegirlrevolution.com.